So I just got done seeing The Flash, and I have a lot of thoughts on the movie. I'm going to start off with no spoilers and then get into spoilers later on. But yeah, there's a lot to break down with this movie. So with that all out of the way,
Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look, and you'll see into your imagination.
alright, I'm just going to go right out there and say it. I liked the movie. I thought it was pretty good, but oh my god, I had my expectations way too high. Do not go into this movie with super, super high expectations because I was hearing this movie was going to be great. James Gunn was hyping the movie up. The reviews from other people were saying it's like one of the best superhero movies of the all time. And comparing it to The Dark Knight for some reason, good grief. It is not on the level of The Dark Knight. It is not one of the best superhero movies of all time. In my opinion, at least, it might be one of the best to you. I think it was pretty good. It's got super overhyped to the point where it might affect people's judgment of the movie. Like if you go into this movie thinking you're gonna watch The Dark Knight, then you're gonna probably end up not liking the movie because you're gonna be so disappointed. I unfortunately had my expectations way too freaking high. Do not know why I had my expectations that high. I mean, I do know why because of like what people were saying and the trailers looked good and Michael Keaton Batman. Like, yo, that's pretty damn cool. And then you got the hints of so many cameos possibly being in the movie. Don't want to get into spoilers. I don't want to say if there are cameos or not. But overall, I like the movie. I thought it was pretty good. It's not as good as No Way Home. I heard some reviews say that it's No Way Home but better, or what No Way Home should have been. No, I love No Way Home. I think No Way Home is a much better film, a much better crafted film, and a much better use of fan service. Honestly, I think Spider-Man No Way Home is the best use of fan service I've ever seen in like anything. But yeah, I think the negatives with this film, and I think many people have heard this negative, is the CGI is pretty bad at times. It's good and then it's not good. And another problem I had with this movie is there was just moments where the story was rushed and they rushed certain things with certain characters. This movie was 2.5 hours and didn't feel like 2.5 hours. So that's a really good thing. Like the fact that it felt like it needed to be longer. I think that's a pretty good thing. And I wasn't bored at all, that's for sure. But I feel like this movie needed like to be a 3 hour movie or possibly make this movie into two parts because there was so much more I feel like they should have done and they could have done. It felt incomplete at times too. Like I know this movie was reshot, rewritten, and all this other stuff, and I think you could definitely tell when watching this movie that there were certain things that were not developed more, or certain things that were changed. It just felt like something was missing and something was incomplete besides the visual effects. But the director did say that he did that on purpose. I don't know if that's true or not. Why would you make your CGI look bad? I mean, he was saying like something about how when the Flash was like running super fast, it makes his vision look all distorted and stuff, which he wanted to do that with his CGI. I really don't know if that's an excuse. To be honest, it kind of makes sense because why wouldn't they improve the CGI if they had all this time? Because this movie has been made for such a long time and they had a lot of time to work on the visual effects. So why wouldn't they be working on the visual effects this whole time when they shelved this movie because of like all the COVID and controversy stuff that's been going on? But yeah, the CGI was really bad. It looked like it came out of a Xbox 360 video game. It was just not good at times. But there was times where it did look really good. So I really don't know why the CGI is as bad as it is. I will say it doesn't feel like the MCU CGI where it feels like it's empty. The movie definitely does not feel empty. I feel like it has a soul. It has a life to it, if that makes sense. A lot of MCU projects recently kind of feels empty and it kind of feels lifeless. This doesn't feel like that with The Flash, even with the crazy amount of CGI. And let's talk about the story real quick. I think the story is pretty good, and I really like something that they do with the story that it's unique for a superhero movie these days, especially with the MCU, where it's always super formulaic. This movie is not formulaic, and I really do appreciate that. I really appreciate how this movie just has a soul, and I think it makes me like the movie a lot more. But there are just stuff in this movie that just doesn't work, and I'll just talk about the characters real quick. I liked Ezra Miller's The Flash, both of them. I think they were good in the movie. Still don't like Ezra Miller as like the Barry Allen Flash. Ezra doesn't feel like Barry Allen the Flash to me. I think there are actors that are better to play Barry Allen, like to actually portray the essence of the character from the comics. I don't even think Grant Gustin really feels like Barry Allen too much either. I know a lot of people say, oh, get Grant Gustin, he's perfect. I disagree. I feel like Grant Gustin portrays more of a Wally West type of Flash, especially in the early seasons of the show. But I guess every Barry Allen Flash moving forward is just going to be a Wally West Bart Allen clone. Ezra Miller feels more like Bart Allen at times to me, like a combination of Bart Allen and Wally West. But the performance by Ezra Miller I thought was pretty good. I liked the character that Ezra portrayed, both of them I liked, and was invested in their story. The second Barry Allen I didn't like that much at times, but there was some really heartwarming moments with the second Ezra Miller Flash. Then there was Michael Keaton. I thought he was badass. I loved him in this movie. Supergirl I liked a lot too. Don't like her look, to be honest, but it is what it is. I think her character was pretty good. I think the performance was pretty good. I would not be opposed to see her as the main Supergirl moving forward, but I really doubt that would be the case because I think they're starting over with everyone, like all new actors for everything, so it's kind of a shame that we might never see this Supergirl again. So yeah, overall, a pretty good film. Couple problems. The ending, by the way, is really great. I love the ending. I know some people are like, the ending is a mixed bag and whatever. I really like the ending. My theater actually made a reaction. They made a reaction a couple times, but everyone was like, what the hell? I love the ending. I think the ending was so surprising and it was so unexpected. I really thought it was going to be something and it ended up being something else. I'll explain it more in the spoilers after the non-spoiler section. I'll give this film an 81%. It's a pretty good film with a lot of problems and a lot of issues, especially in the CGI department. All right, we're going to get into spoilers. Spoilers section, you have been warned. There's a lot to break down. So, spoilers in 3, 2, 1. All right, let's get on to the spoilers. All right, first thing I want to talk about is the cameos. There are cameos in this movie. Holy crap, they're not good. I really thought there was going to be real people in this movie. There was, like, the cameos that we did see was CGI. The whole thing was really weird and cool at the same time. At first I thought it was like, oh wow, this is pretty cool. Are they actually going to do something? No, we just see them, and it's like it's the worst kind of cameos. It's like Crisis on Infinite Earths cameos where they don't do anything. They're just there to be there, and it's so annoying. Spider-Man No Way Home did cameos perfectly. They did the cameos and they added character development with them, and they had character interactions. These cameos at the end were the worst kind of cameos. It was so weird too. Also, why the heck is there Zoom as Jay Garrick in the part of the cameos? If you remember when they showed the George Reeves Superman, for some reason there's Jay Garrick from The Flash, but not Jay Garrick. It was Hunter Zolomon Zoom who was pretending to be Jay Garrick. Why the heck was he in George Reeves' Superman universe as Jay Garrick? What the hell? I was like, what the hell is that? You don't show Grant Gustin and you don't show Stephen Amell, Oliver Queen, or like anything. You show Hunter Zolomon's Jay Garrick from the Flash TV show as a CGI face. Like, am I the only one that noticed that? That was so freaking bizarre. And I thought it was pretty cool to see Nicolas Cage Superman as a cameo. Why not actually have Nicolas Cage as Superman in the movie? That would have been pretty cool. Maybe get Brandon Routh in the movie. I'm hoping we'll eventually see a proper Crisis on Infinite Earths with all the actors that played so many different characters over the years. I really hope we see a big, proper multiverse movie. Really bring everyone back. That's something we need. The Flash felt like a half-baked version of what a true cameo with proper character development crossover should be, if that makes any sense. Because this was not the movie to have all these cameos in it. And the cameos that we did see were really just bad. It was just really strange. They didn't do anything. It was cool to see the cameos that we did see. We saw Christopher Reeve Superman. We saw Nicolas Cage Superman, George Reeves Superman, Adam West Batman, I think. And then the Jay Garrick from The Flash, but the Hunter Zolomon version. Why not actually get John Wesley Snipes Jay Garrick from The Flash? Why did they get the Hunter Zolomon version of the Jay Garrick? I could be wrong and that wasn't him, but that looked like him to me. And that whole thing was just really freaking weird. I feel like there might have been more cameos during that whole CGI cameo-filled sequence, but I feel like they might have cut a lot of those cameos out for reasons, who knows why. The story I thought was pretty good. There was just some half-baked stuff to it. It felt incomplete at times, and I think you could definitely tell things were changed in the movie. Things were reshot. I think the original ending for the movie was not for George Clooney's Batman to appear. I think it was supposed to be Michael Keaton's Batman, and they were going to show the Supergirl from the Flash movie, and they were going to be like the new faces of the DCEU. But obviously James Gunn took over, and I'm sure they changed the ending to like make this a finale for the DCEU. But I really liked that. I really liked seeing George Clooney's Bruce Wayne or Batman, whatever he was in that ending. I really thought that was funny. The whole audience laughed and they were like, "What the f?" Like I actually said that, like WTF, like what the hell? And then Ezra Miller's reaction to, or his character's reaction to see George Clooney. I just loved that ending. I think that ending is a mixed bag for many people, but I thought it was hilarious. I loved the ending. But the story itself, I thought was good, had some problems. I feel like some things could have been developed more. Definitely feel like this, like I said, I think this movie needed to be like 3 hours or split into two parts because there's so much more they could have done with this movie. And I like the core characters that we followed, the two Barry Allens, the one older and younger one, and Supergirl and Michael Keaton Batman. It was like a mini Justice League. I really liked those characters all together. I thought they all had pretty good chemistry, but certain things in their development I felt like was rushed, and certain interactions I felt like wasn't developed long enough. Also, something I really do like about this movie is how it's not formulaic. Like, it's no traditional villain. Barry Allen is technically the villain of this movie. Yes, there's General Zod, but he's kind of like the villain because of like Man of Steel. He comes around the same time. But Barry Allen creates the villain of this story. I mean, it's like, I've kind of figured out who that purple speedster was. I thought that was the Reverse Flash at first, but then I eventually figured out that once the younger Barry Allen started getting those spikes in him, I figured that's who that other speedster was. He was just traveling through time over and over and over again, getting older or whatever. I thought that was refreshing that there isn't some sort of traditional bad guy, and it was like Barry Allen created the villain of this movie, and I thought that was pretty good. I thought that was unique because I was getting tired of the traditional, oh, villain that's just come here to destroy the world, and then he does destroy the world or he doesn't destroy the world. You know what I mean? This was refreshing. This was unique. I was getting tired of the same old, oh, there's a villain. No, there's no like real villain to this story. It's a personal story and the consequences of your actions. So thank you to whoever came up with the idea of like no real villain to this story. There doesn't always need to be a villain to a superhero story, in my opinion. And I also want to talk about Ben Affleck and Wonder Woman, who was in this movie, real quick. Ben Affleck in this movie was just really off at times. And why didn't they use his voice modulator when doing the Batman? Like, his Batman didn't have the voice modulator that he usually has. Does anyone else notice that? Like, I don't know if that was just me, but his Batman was just talking without the voice modulator and felt really cheap and weird. Also, his Batman felt goofy, like in Justice League, but his Bruce Wayne felt like something that came from the Snyderverse or Zack Snyder's version of Batman. But his Batman, like Ben Affleck's Batman, just felt very goofy and it was making one-liners, and I didn't like that. But they did a good job with Michael Keaton's Batman in this movie. I don't know if it was the performance of Ben Affleck that was just off, but it wasn't good, and I didn't like the one-liners that they gave for Ben Affleck's Batman. I really don't think Batman should be joking. I'm sorry. I think it's weird. Like, once in a while, make a little quip here and there. Like you saw in the Matt Reeves Batman movie, I think once in a while he said something that was a little cheeky, but that's about it. You don't need to like have quips for Batman or making him jokey and goofy. Batman is serious. Let's make it serious, please. But the director did a good job with Michael Keaton's Batman, in my opinion. So who knows how he's going to do with the Brave and the Bold Batman movie. If you don't know the director, Andy Machulini, I think his last name is, he will be directing the new Batman, the Brave and the Bold movie. And I just don't know if he can really do a Batman movie. He could do a Back to the Future type of movie for sure. This movie kind of feels like Back to the Future in many ways. And oh, by the way, they reference Back to the Future in this movie. There was a lot of Easter eggs and references to a lot of different movies outside of the DC universe, and I really appreciated that, and I thought that was really cool. But after watching this movie, I don't know if he could do a Batman movie. And I remember watching his It movies. I like the It movies, part 1 and part 2. I know part 2 gets some hate, but I liked his directing style, and I liked his movies. I think he's a pretty solid director. I just don't know if I picture him doing a Batman movie. And I think a Batman movie needs to be serious, like the Matt Reeves Batman movie. Like, it needs to be not. It doesn't need to be super dark, but come on, can we just like keep Batman serious, please? I'm hoping James Gunn knows what he's doing and knows that Batman needs to be serious. But after hearing this guy is going to be directing the Brave and the Bold Batman movie, that does get me a bit worried. But we shall see. Hopefully, it's pretty good. It also gets me worried that they're focusing on Damian Wayne. That's a discussion for a different time. I don't like Damian Wayne's Robin. But back to this movie, I think the director did a good job portraying Michael Keaton's Batman. It felt like Michael Keaton's Batman, like the character didn't feel weird. Actually, in the beginning, it was a bit weird with him looking homeless and stuff. And he was like, "Nah, I'm not gonna help you. You know what? I'm gonna help you now." And okay, it was interesting. There was no real character development. I felt like with this version of the Batman, I was hoping that we get a little bit something like when Spider-Man: No Way Home, like those. We get a little bit something about their character. We didn't get really anything about Michael Keaton's Batman. He was just kind of there to do his thing, be a mentor. We don't really know anything else about like what has happened with him as Batman. So that was a bit disappointing, but he was badass in this movie, and his fight scenes were so freaking cool. They were so memorable. I love the action that Michael Keaton's Batman had in this movie. Really badass. Also, one more thing I want to mention. I'm probably going to mention a couple more things, but this is one of the other things I wanted to mention. Did anyone else get bothered by the explanation of how the time travel thing worked in this movie? Like, with Michael Keaton's first off, why was Michael Keaton's Batman explaining the multiverse? Like, what the heck? But yeah, he was explaining like once you change the past, it affects all of time and space, and somehow gets multiverses to collapse in with one another. And like, I think that's a little extreme. I don't know if that's even realistic. The fact that if you just change a little thing from the past, it will create a multiverse crap show. Like, I don't know about that. That's a little. I don't know if I buy that, to be honest. Like, with the way he was explaining with the pasta, like, no, I don't really buy that. I really thought, like, with Barry changing the past, he somehow accidentally went into another universe. Not that universe collided in with one another because he saved his mom. Only the future should change, not like multiverses colliding with one another and it changes things from the past, like Back to the Future and all this other stuff. I don't think it would go that extreme. That doesn't really make any sense to me. Also, the post-credits scene, I don't really understand what that meant. I was trying to look into it. It sounds like Ezra Miller's The Flash is able to travel through multiverses now. He knows how to go to different universes with different Batman. I could be wrong. Don't really know. I just got out watching the movies, so that whole post-credits scene could really mean anything. I thought the post-credits scene was just kind of stupid, though. But I do like I said, I do like that George Clooney ending. I thought that was hilarious and so unexpected too. I really, like I said, I really wonder what this original ending for the movie would have been. I just wonder in general what this movie was originally going to be like, because it had so many different reshoots and different types of endings and different. You heard about all the behind the scenes stuff. You know this movie got reshot multiple times. You know this movie's supposed to be a very different type of movie and just have other types of characters in it. So who knows what the true vision of this movie would have been like, and who knows what this movie would have been like if James Gunn never took over the DC universe. But the reality is the DCEU is now over. And in a lot of ways, it does feel like an ending to the DCEU. Kind of does, kind of doesn't. The ending kind of leaves you with a lot of questions, to be honest, along with that post-credit scene. The true ending of the DCEU is Aquaman 2. Don't know if that will feel like an ending to the DCEU, but we shall wait and see. So yeah, speaking of the future of the DCEU and the future of like everything based off of this movie and what everything's going to be like, I have no idea. I'm so tired of DC like just making a mess of things, and this movie was pretty good, like I said, but it did feel like a mess. I just wonder how this movie would have been like if we had a proper DC universe by now. Like if we didn't have all this messiness and all this confusion, and the DCEU was a mess. And I'm wondering. I have hope for James Gunn's DC universe. I'm still a bit worried about it because it's Warner Brothers and they mess things up and they change their mind 1,000 different times, fire 1,000 different people, and they have no true direction. I'm really hoping that the James Gunn DC universe is going to be good and have a direction and not be like the DCEU. Who knows? I'm tired of always hoping for stuff for DC to be good and it just never does and just always ends up being a mess and whatnot. But we'll see. I'm going to give it a chance. I'm obviously going to watch it because it's DC. I'm just tired of being excited for DC over and over and over again. And I was excited for this movie too. I was super, super excited. I had so many like things in my head about how this movie could be like The Dark Knight. Like, oh my God, yeah. Like, yeah, that's crazy. and it wasn't The Dark Knight. It was an 81% movie. The Dark Knight is like in the 90s. And also with this movie, another thing too I forgot to mention was the humor. It wasn't that bad, but I do wish the humor was less, and I do wish that there was more serious stuff in it. I think I just prefer superhero movies to be serious, not dark, just to take everything much more seriously. And I think there was a lot of moments where I did do that. It just felt like the jokes went too far sometimes, especially with the younger Barry Allen, who was just sometimes way too over the top and annoying. But the scenes with Barry and his mother, Ezra did a great job performing in those scenes, and I just felt the emotion. This movie does have heart. It's just there's a lot of stuff going against this movie, and I think a lot of that has to do with stuff going on behind the scenes, unfortunately. But yeah, who knows what the future of the DC universe is like, but I just hope it's going to be more consistent and have more direction than the DCEU.